So we're gonna break down from the beginning to end. This might be a long video, but if you're actually interested in buying a house, we'll actually go very much into detail our process in the buying a house and ways that maybe this could help you possibly buy a house. I hope it won't be boring. So first, let me introduce ourselves. My name's Anna.
My name is Ashton.
So we are 22 and 23, and we just bought our first house last week in Manchester, Connecticut.
Yep.
Our house was listed for $280,000 or $279,000.
Yeah, 79.
Technically. We put an offer. Well, it's kind of a long story. Our original offer was for $310,000. We officially got it for $305,000. If you're thinking $25,000 over, if you know anything about this market, that's pretty standard. But we'll get into more details about that later. Our monthly payments are $2,200, including mortgage insurance, and I think that's like the basic. And our square footage is 2,500. We have a basically almost finished basement. Fully finished basement, and yeah. We already gave a house tour. I'm gonna put that. Can you put links on the thing?
Yeah, little cards over there. Oh, right there.
Ding, ding, ding. I don't know. Once we actually have furniture in here, we'll do another house tour. And yeah, so we're gonna get into our first step now. This video isn't saying what you should do. It's just saying what we did. I'm not a financial advisor. We're not financial advisors, and I can't tell you what to do with your life. I'm just gonna tell you what we did with our lives.
All right.
Putting that there.
So I was air traffic controller. I work at Bradley International Airport in the tower. I make $80,000 a year now once I'm fully certified. Start out making a whole lot less, around $50,000, $49 to be exact. But now since I'm fully certified, I make $80,000 a year now. So it was a nice bump in pay over the last year. Helped afford this house that we just bought.
I am a social media specialist for Wesleyan University. I make $60,000 a year. Before this, I was teaching in Florida, and I made $48,000 a year. But I started teaching at $39,000. We got a thanks to Governor
Ron DeSantis,
baby Trump. We got like a $10,000 raise my first year teaching. That was like unprecedented. So I started off teaching $39,000. I was at $48,000, and now I make $60,000 in Connecticut. So first thing we did, we made a budget. Can we afford a house? So prior to this, we were living in an apartment, and the apartment was how much a month? $1,300 a month, right? It was 1 bedroom, 1 bath, super small. I mean, it was a nice place, don't get me wrong, but $1,300 for 1 bed, 1 bath. Now we have way more than that.
And they're trying to go up to $1,500.
Oh yeah, year. The next, if we stayed there, it would be $1,500 a month, right? But now we pay $2,200 a month, and don't get me wrong, we get so much more space than we did before, but everyone necessarily can't make that jump. So I'm gonna put our budget that we use on the screen. So we broke down, so I'm gonna actually put a mortgage calculator on the screen as well, because you could put, how much you make and like how much a house costs onto a mortgage calculator online. And I'll give you a rough estimate of how much your monthly payments would be. So calculating that, as well as your internet, your car payment. So for context, my car is now paid off as of 2 days ago. And I knew it was gonna be paid off by the time we got a house. So that was only Ashton's car payment was included in the budget. Car insurance, utilities, food and groceries, gas for your car. We go to church, so we tithe. Phone bill, car insurance, student loan payments, hopefully will not be that high, and solar panels. So first thing we felt you should do is we made a budget for ourselves. Can we afford a house, right? Or what kind of house can we afford? So step number 1.
All right, so step number 2 in our home buying process was to find a realtor. So Anna actually was a social media, so she holds social media guru. So she found a realtor on Instagram. So messaged him, set up a call with him. Really liked him, his personality, and what he did. So we went with him as our realtor.
Yeah. And my biggest thing for finding a realtor was so there was first we wanted a black realtor, we wanted a black realtor. So that's our dog. So we really wanted a black realtor, and that was important to us because buying a house as a black couple or black people versus a white couple or white people is a very different experience. We feel like a black realtor will understand our experience a little bit more. So I searched online for black realtors in Connecticut, and it was just all these people on there. But I was like, how do I figure out who's active, who do we want? So I was going through their Instagrams, and our realtor Denzel Smith, I'm gonna put him really big right here because we love Denzel. he had a strong Instagram social media presence. Like, he was posting consistently, had a clear brand, a clear message. And, like, as a social media person, that just really stuck out to me. I was like, yeah, like, he's active. He knows what he's doing. He's knowledgeable. And, yeah. So, first step is you have to find a realtor that fits your needs. Like Ashton said, we set up a call with him. He explained, you know, how the process works, which we'll explain to you. And, yeah, so first step is find someone to represent you. All right, step number 3 in this process is to find a mortgage lender. And our biggest thing that we didn't know what to do was to find a mortgage lender first or realtor. And, like, I'm glad we did find the realtor first because our realtor actually gave us our mortgage lender, which we'll talk about later. We actually hated this company and this person, but we ended up going with them. So the whole question of a mortgage lender is, do you go with a big bank or with a local company, right? So we actually got 2 things. We actually went with both a big bank and a small company. Mm-hmm. So what does a mortgage lender do? That actually leads us to our 4th step is they give you a pre-qualification. A realtor really won't work with you, not take you seriously until you get pre-qualification. A pre-qualification is basically paperwork that says, all right, you're approved for this much money. So a mortgage lender calls you or emails you and they ask for how much money you make. Your income, your debt, if you have car payments, your assets, everything to know to see, you know, how much can you afford and what your interest rate would be. Now, this interest rate isn't locked in, though. This is just an estimate at this time. Your interest rate isn't locked in until later on in the home buying process.
You're under contract.
And so you're under contract, right. And even that's a whole different story. Because even when you're under contract. Yeah, so you gotta find a mortgage lender. The benefits of finding, like I said, we did both. We ended up at the end going with the local lender. But the benefits of finding a big bank mortgage lender is that it's more established. So our one we got was Wells Fargo. We went with them initially. And we liked, her name was Nancy. We actually liked her a lot. But the benefits of a local lender is that, like, I could text him. So, like, I could just easily text my local lender. He worked the weekends, which was a big con of the big bank because she didn't work weekends. And one of the houses that we put an offer in, we put it on
transactions go through the weekend.
On weekends. So they can't really help you. And the local lender that we went through could do a closing in 21 days. Most closings are done in 30 days or more.
For big banks at least.
Yeah, for big banks. So we actually ended up going with a local lender, but that's just some of the pros and cons of local lender versus small lender.
All right, step number 5 is start looking at houses. So I recommend Realtor, Zulu, HomeSnap. What else? Basically every day set your filters up, geotag, whatever you want. What like dimensions and square footage you want for the house. You start looking every day. Your realtor should also help you with this. Just tell him what you're looking for, what you want in the house, and he should send you, or he or she should send you stuff to look at. So most stuff I would just look at every day. Okay, new listing, new listing, new listing. If it's open house, go to open house. You don't really need the realtor to go to open house. But if you wanted to find just like the house that without open house, you need the realtor to go to the house itself. So start looking.
Yeah, and use your realtor because the realtors, like, even though Ashton's really, really knowledgeable in like construction and those type of areas, the realtor is super, super knowledgeable in that, or should be.
Should be, yeah.
Yeah, so like we went to houses, the realtor would like notice like, oh, this vertical, like he would notice just the craziest of stuff that we would never notice because he's trained in this. So he would be like, yeah, this house looks pretty, but it's a flipped house, you know, like all this stuff is wrong with it, you know. So our realtor is very, very, very knowledgeable in knowing, you know, what was the background. The houses might look cute, but
yeah, but a lot of houses nowadays, especially this market, are not done right.
Yeah, they're made terribly, and stuff that I wouldn't see, or maybe Ashton wouldn't see, our realtor would notice. So he was very instrumental in helping us find what was best for us and what was not
right. Because the first couple of houses we all looked at, they were horrible.
It started off pretty bad. Yeah.
Like they repainted the tub and the drain wasn't right. Bunch of cracks in the walls. They just painted back over. Cracks in the foundation, cracks in the walls, leaking in the basement. Just all types of stuff. Like the house looks great on Realtor, but once you actually get to the house, it's not.
Pictures are very deceiving.
Very deceiving. And once you realize, as you go to more and more houses, you realize in the pictures, oh, that's messed up. Okay, that's messed up.
You learn as you go, yeah. All right, so step number 6 is you put your first offer in. So I think we put our first offer in on the 4th house.
Yeah,
that
4th
we looked at. So how do you know when to put an offer in and how do you put an offer in? So we found a house. It was in Ellington, Connecticut.
Mm-hmm.
I still like this house to this day. It was only one and a half bathroom, which at that time we didn't really like. We still didn't like it, but it was a really nice house. And when you look at so many houses, you kind of get discouraged.
Right.
And you kind of start settling. Let me say, don't settle, you know. And we were settling with this house. It was a nice house, but that 1.5 bathroom we really didn't want, but we still put an offer on this house. So, how do you put an offer in? What is putting an offer in? So, say if a house is listed for $250,000. Now, if you're watching this as of 2022,
right,
or 2021, right, this market is outrageous. It's a seller's market. What does a seller's market mean? A seller's market means that sellers are able to sell their house for more than what it's worth, and buyers are paying for houses that are more than what it's worth. For example, the house that we bought, it was only listed for $280,000. We put an offer in for $310,000, which is $30,000 over the market, and
over asking price.
Over asking price, and I'm not recommending anyone to do that. But in this market, to get what we want, this is what we had to do.
In the long run, it worked out because the home's actually worth $320,000.
Yeah,
but the appraisal came back. So
yeah, so we're not under the hole or what in the water. Underwater.
Upside down
with the house at all. We actually are good to go with it.
Equity.
Yeah, we have 10,000 or 15,000 in the equity of it. But that's what the expectation is now this day. So the first house we put an offer in on, our realtor was like, all right, you know, like what extra money do you have? So let me explain the mortgage thing real quick. So like say if we were approved for $350,000, right? Mm-hmm. So we thought, at least maybe we were just not even dumb, but we thought that say if we have a house that's $250,000, right? We could offer up to, let's say, $350,000, right? And the bank will cover it.
Nope.
No, that's not how it works. So it's all about the appraisal. I'm going to get into appraisal details later, but let me just say this now. If a house is only worth $250,000 and is listed for $250,000, the bank is only paying $250,000. Mm-hmm. If you want to put $260,000 on that, you out of your own pocket need to come up with $10,000 cash, basically, for that house.
Right.
That may be common knowledge to y'all.
The appraisal gap, what they call it.
The appraisal gap. That wasn't common knowledge to us. So you can only put on what the house is worth from the bank. Unless you got $200,000 in your pocket, you can only put towards a house what the house is worth. Mm-hmm. So the first 2 houses we lost because we couldn't put as much on it over as we wanted.
It was worth.
So that's called a CMA. I need to talk about the CMA. How do you know how much you put on it?
There you go, yeah.
Yeah, so how do you know how much you put on a house? That's why I need a realtor. So for the first house, how much was the first house worth? I want to say it was $260,000, $270,000.
Yeah, I think so. Somewhere around.
Yeah, so let's say the first house we put an offer on was $260,000, right? We said we want it, right? Our realtor goes back and they do a CMA, a current market. I'll put the words on the screen. I forgot. And he or she, but ours is a he. He went and looked at this. He did a mini appraisal. Is basically what it is, and then he went and saw how much was the house worth. It's a range. So this range can come up between, let's say the house is worth $260,000 or it's listed for $260,000. Mm-hmm. It could be, he would be like, all right, it's between $240,000 and $280,000. Right. And it's just like, okay, right? So it's a range, right? So you could put an offer in for, he might be like, all right, you should put an offer for $280,000. But if that house comes back at appraisal and it's only $240,000, you got $40,000 you got to come up with. And it's actually really not like that. We actually learned way later in the process, but we won't actually explain that. But let's just say there's $40,000 you have to come up with. So that's what a CMA. So a realtor, after you find a house that you like, he does a CMA, and that's how you figure out how much to put on a house. Mm-hmm. And that's how we always got the number we wanted to put. In this market, you have to go towards the top. So if a CMA comes back at $280,000, if you ain't putting $280,000 on it, you're probably not going to win it. And that's why we lost our first 2 offers.
First 3, right?
And we won our 3rd offer.
I don't get it.
Yeah, true. So that's how we lost our first 2 offers. Our second offer, we put $20,000 over asking on it, and we still lost the house. Mm-hmm. It's rough out here. But yeah, is that enough information? So when you put an offer in, there are certain things you can do, especially in this market, to make your offer more competitive. Here are a couple things we did. First, you can waive your inspection. Waiving an inspection doesn't mean you can't get an inspection. Waiving your inspection means that...
information only.
Information only. So it means that... So you can waive your inspection completely, or you can do an inspection, information only inspection, which is what we did. Mm-hmm. So basically he's saying, if we found out the furnace is broken, right, we can't come at them and be like, fix the furnace. And our realtor basically explained we technically can, like, negotiate But with the regular inspection, it's like full blown negotiation. And our information only inspection is just basically just to say, all right, we know this is broken, we need it fixed. And it's competitive in an offer because most of the time, if they found the furnace broken in a regular offer, you know, the sellers have to come and fix it. And an inspection, information only inspection, they don't.
Essentially.
Yeah.
So you're still protected. It was like, so our clause was like up to $20,000
right.
for our information only. So if something major was to happen, we could still back out.
Yeah, with that, and we'd get our deposit back and everything. So it wasn't like super deadly or anything like that. Another thing we did was an appraisal gap. An appraisal gap. Remember I was explaining how before, like if the house is listed for $260, right, and we put an offer on for $270, but it comes out in that appraisal that it's only worth $260. There's a $10,000 gap. That's what I'm calling an appraisal gap. So on our offer, we put that we're going to put forth a $3,000 appraisal gap, which means if there's a $3,000 difference or more in the listed price versus worth price, we'll pay out of pocket $3,000. That's all we're paying. So if it's $20,000 more, like they have to either pay it, or we learn later in the process that they can just decrease the price of the home to that price, or they could just boot us and find someone else. But most people at that time in the process wouldn't do that. So we basically said, all right, so if the house comes, if it under appraises based on what the listed price came back or CMA, we'll pay out of pocket $3,000 towards that. So.
All right, so step 7, getting your offer accepted. So after putting a third offer on a third house, which one we currently have now.
Third time's a charm.
Yeah, third time's a charm. You always say that. We got an offer accepted. So
what does offer accepted mean?
It's usually the best and highest and best due by date. So our highest and best was like on a Friday, and they took like a day or two to come back to us like, hey, actually we went with your offer. So for us at least, they came back, hey, there's a whole super housing clause. We get into that later in another video. But hey, can you update your thing to say we can stay up to the house until this date? And we're like, yeah, okay, cool. And we won the offer then.
And we also wrote a letter. So our realtor recommended us to write a letter to the sellers. That was we actually wrote a letter to the second people too. We didn't get that one. But we wrote a letter explaining like, hey, this is us. You know, we have a dog. High school sweethearts. You know, like all that. You know, getting good with them. And we actually won the offer for that one. So offer accepted. Once you get your offer accepted, you have to put a deposit down within like 24 or 48 hours down in the house. What is a deposit? So you know you have your down payment, and a down payment is typically it has to be for an FHA loan at least 3%.
3.5. No,
3.5% now. We'll put the numbers on the screen. So say
usually about 5% for banks.
Right. So say your down payment has to be $10,000. Our realtor recommended we to put a deposit down of $5,000, 50% of it. What does the deposit mean? A deposit means that it means you're serious about it, right? The issue with the deposit is if you pull out for whatever reason, you lose your money. If they pull out, you get your money back. So within 24 hours, you have to put a deposit down on the house towards the seller. They can't spend it, they can't use it or anything like that. It goes to an
escrow account.
It went to an escrow account. But it's just basically saying like, hey, we're for real about this whole process.
Once you get the deposit in, you have to order your inspection and appraisal within like a week of time. So our realtor because we moved from Florida to Connecticut, we didn't know any like inspectors, so he had an inspector we used. He was a great guy.
His name is Mike. I'll put his information right here.
Yeah, Mike was great. He did a very thorough inspection on the house, told us all wrong with it, stuff to look out for, stuff that might need to be replaced or that's out of code to start current standards. But the inspection went good. Nothing really major wrong with the house. AC, heat, all work, dishwasher, dryer, all the faucets, no like major cracks, no linking. Roof was just put on in 2022, so he said, oh, that's good. And then appraisal is other thing that you pay out of pocket for. So 2 things you pay out of pocket for usually.
Only 2 things really.
Appraisal and the inspection.
And when we say out of pocket, technically everything you're paying for is out of pocket for the closing costs. But when we say out of pocket, like everything else you pay for at closing day. Yeah. These things you pay for like at the time. Yeah. So like when we had our inspection, we paid that day. When we had the appraisal, we paid that day. That's what we mean by pay up front or out of pocket.
Yeah. So I definitely recommend getting an inspection because you see stuff that's not wrong with the house because he goes very thorough. So
yeah. So one thing that happened in our home buying process that I hope happens in no one's home buying process is the sellers pull out. And we're still in the house, as you see. So we got here eventually, but it
was a very long process.
Very long process.
3 months.
Yeah, I'll probably make a whole separate video going into like detail of what happened. But basically, we were set to close in September 10th.
Yeah,
I believe. 10th through 11th, and we let the sellers going to be able to stay there until the 31st or 30th of September. That was the clause that we agreed to because we had our apartment until the 30th because my birthday was the 19th. But remember we talked about putting an offer in? One of the clauses of the offer that we agreed to is that if the sellers can't find a house because they were selling the house and buying a house, they could pull out. And obviously we didn't know that they had over a month to do this, and they didn't find a house. Mm-hmm. So a couple days before our closing, they pulled out, and we thought the world ended.
Essentially, and back on the market.
And we were back on the market after a month and a half. You know, we
under contract.
Contract, thinking we were going to close on this house in a couple of days, and they pulled out under us a couple months ahead of time. A couple days ahead of time. Earth shattered. So we got back on the market. We couldn't find anything that we wanted. We had, this was our dream house. Other than not having 2-car garage, this is literally our dream house. Like, we were dead set on this house. And we didn't feel like we should have to settle for something else. Everything else was overpriced.
Right. Didn't have central AC.
Didn't have central AC. Didn't have the finished basement. Like, this house had everything. And so we were even considering just getting an apartment. Like, we were that done with this whole process. Like, it was bad. It was bad. And then we ended up having to extend our apartment lease for a couple more months, 2 more months. Right. And we told our realtor about it, and he was like, would you consider going back under contract with these original people? We were like, excuse my language. I'll cut that out. And then we thought about it, and we talked to them again, and guess what they said? Yeah, we could do it again under the same clause of suitable housing clause. And we were like, heck no. We ended up doing it.
We made it more secure this time for us, at least saying, hey, we have up to this date to be under contract and this date to move out. So basically, they wasn't under contract
by October 7th.
Yeah, by October 7th.
We were closing on October 10th.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we had October 10th closing. They had to be under contract by October 7th, which wasn't that much, looking back, wasn't that much leeway time. And they had to be out the house by October 30th first. So we set that up for
we had the apartment to November.
Yeah. So they found a house the last week of September, I think, and they were under contract. So but what happened with the last transaction, they were under contract the first time around, but their inspection, right? I was saying how important inspection is, a furnace. So
I think it's something big happened.
Yeah, they were under contract with a house, but their inspection came back bad, basically, for the house. And it was something that was tens of thousands of dollars to fix, so they pulled out. So that's what happened with their first transaction. Anyways, we ended up closing on October 10th. Ended up working out, and we ended up getting the same house. But we started this process in July. So I wish this
October.
Yeah, I wish this now my worst enemy. But just to show you that it doesn't necessarily go smoothly as you want it. And it might work out for you like it did for us, or it might not. But this was probably the least smooth process. And it's a whole anxiety. So I want to make it very clear that people can pull out on you at any time.
Right. And it sucks.
And that's the sucky part about it. So it could be the morning of closing. You think you have this house. You don't have that house until you sign those papers.
And have the keys.
And you have the keys, you know? So, for any reason, people can pull out on you. For any reason. It's their house. They can do what they want. Mm-hmm. I think that's a very insecure part of this process that I personally hated. Even without a suitable housing clause, they can pull out on you at any point. And then, final is what?
Closing day.
Closing day. Which is still anxious because, like I said, they can still pull out on you. Right. The morning of. So, if you had a cool merchant order company like we did, everything was signed beforehand, e-signature.
E-signature online. So
yeah.
It's 24 hours beforehand, so basically 2 o'clock in the morning. Yeah. No, it was 12 hours, right? I think. Is it 24 or 12?
I
think it's 12 hours beforehand.
No.
So I think it was closed, we were closed at 12 o'clock.
2
o'clock in the afternoon. He said it at 2 o'clock in the morning, so we went through all the paperwork in the morning, read, took an hour and a half.
40 pages of documents.
Yeah, 40 pages of documents, read all that stuff, make sure everything was good with that. Then we did an e-signature, so once you got to the actual closing table, it only took 10 minutes to sign.
It was 9 minutes. We counted the minutes.
We were out and out the closing table in 9 minutes, so.
Our realtor said it was the fastest closing he's ever been to.
Mm-hmm. So that was pretty sweet.
Yeah, and we got the keys right then and there, even though the wire transfer didn't go through yet. That's the whole gag.
Yeah.
So there's 2 ways to pay. That's another question. There's 2 ways to pay, and we didn't even talk about how much all are.
That's a whole other video. It's a long
day too. It's such a long process.
Yeah.
I guess we didn't talk about how much the closing cost was, and
it's just too much for this video.
Too much. Okay. How do you pay? So you can either do a check or a wire transfer for our company, at least. Mm-hmm. We did a wire transfer, so we called our bank, told them how much money to send. They tell you what accounts to send it to you, and we wired all the money directly to them. Even though the wire transfer wasn't through, they gave us the keys, and we were able to sleep in the house that night of.
Yeah. And that was it. And we have a house now.
Now we're here. Yeah.
So next video, we'll be actually going more in depth in the actual cost of everything. Buying costs, closing costs, down payment, appraisal costs, inspection costs. What else you got?
Even cost that's accrued. Oh! How much are furnishing the house?
Yeah, furnishing the house
costs. Yeah, all of that.
So basically, next video will be cost of everything essentially.
Because it costs a lot.
Yeah.
It's worth it in the end.
Yeah, it's definitely worth it because I have a house.
Yeah.
We have a house.
Yeah. And then the cool thing about a house, as you know, is like rent, you're just throwing money in the toilet versus house. Like every payment we pay, as far as the, without the interest, is like going directly towards our, like, it's like you're putting the money into a bank.
You're basically investing in yourself.
Yeah. So like you could, so it's different. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Stay tuned.